know if you the rest of yours, okay. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. Sorry that we are about 10 minutes late getting started. I sure dislike being late, and I value all of your time. We've had a couple snags here in person. We are at Lyle Middle School presenting live, and let's just go ahead and dive in. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about the Jones Road Superfund Site. And our mission at Texas Health and Environment Alliance is to protect public health and the environment to protect public health and the environment by engaging, educating, and empowering the movement to clean up historical toxic waste. And my name is Jackie Metcalf. I'm the founder and executive director of THEA. Do you want to turn that for me? All right. Okay, so for those of you who are new tonight, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're working in 3 areas of Harris County, and we have 3 primary tactics to the way that we work. We use grassroots organizing, strategic science, and media exposure to create and mentor environmental movements. I have some questions that I would like to ask. If you are joining us live, go ahead and put your responses in the chat if you would like. We would love to hear from you. So first, I would like to get an idea if this is your first meeting. So please let us know if this is your first meeting or if you have been engaged with us for some time. All right. Next thing I'd like to know, I'd really love to get to know my audience so we can know kind of how to tailor this presentation as we go along. Is your home or business supplied by a groundwater well? Okay. And the last question I have for you in the opening of the meeting is when was the last time you heard from the EPA regarding the Jones Road Superfund Site? All right, so a couple of housekeeping items before we get to the main part of the presentation. I know we have already started late, but I will do my best to be respectful of time moving forward to end on time. And I ask that we are respectful of one another. Many of us are coming into this with a different level of understanding of this site, and so I ask that we're just please respectful. The meeting is being recorded via Zoom. So the folks that are online are aware of that, but the folks who are here with us are not. Also, the questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Virtual, for the virtual folks, all lines will be muted, and you can drop your comments or questions or feedback in the chat if you like. Jot it down, save it till the end. And then for the in-person, feel free to grab hard copy agenda, be a pen, and jot it down. And we'll address those at the end of the Q&A session. Rachel, I think if you would sit right. Oh, well. All right. So just for a bit of context, the Superfund site that we're talking about is a former dry cleaner in northwest Harris County, and it's off of Jones Road, just north of 1960. And it is in the corner of the L of the shopping center that's closest to Jones Road. You can see that indicated here by the red on the cement. You want to go ahead and check this. Just kind of go back. Online. There's a lot going on in the chat. Okay, all right. All right, guys, please bear with us here. All right, so where we are in the Superfund process. The Superfund process is a long and arduous process that often takes 2-3+ decades for sites to get cleaned up. And I know for those of us living in impacted communities, it can be so frustrating. But this Superfund site is currently in the remedial action phase, which is down here. It is on the home stretch, but unfortunately this site has been in the remedial action phase for quite some time, and we are not seeing the action from the federal government that we need to see, and that's why your presence and your participation is so important. So the EPA is working on a 5-year review. So I know we've touched on this in previous presentations, particularly when we met in November, but just to review really quickly again, the 5-year review evaluates the implementation and performance of a remedy to determine if it is protective of human health and the environment or not, and if not, what should be done to make the remedy protective of human health and the environment. So I call these kind of the ABCs of the 5-year review here. B is that it takes place when hazardous substances remain on site. And then generally the 5-year review is 5 years after the response action. So after they have done a cleanup. And so we have had multiple 5-year reviews for the Jones Road Superfund site. And it's a really critical time right now for us to be able to provide feedback to the EPA and ask them for them basically to step up and do what they themselves are saying needs to be done to protect public health in the surrounding communities here. All right, so going back just a little bit in time, I want to talk about what we've been up to. So this is our first time presenting in person in the community in several years because of the pandemic. And over the last year, we have really taken a deep dive into the technical of this Superfund site to try to formulate our opinion on the 5-year review. So we, first and foremost, Rachel's going to touch on a little bit later, the work that we've been doing on a research effort with local universities. We've reviewed the record of decisions that have been done to date. There have been more than one record of decisions for this site. We've reviewed previous 5-year reviews, and we've formulated an opinion from a technical aspect as well as a community perspective based on our review of all of these materials and data. We submitted a report to the EPA in November of, that's 2021. So November of last year, my apologies, we submitted a report to the EPA on our opinion. And after that, we began meeting with elected officials, talking with EPA personnel, as well as other government agencies to see what folks knew, if they were aware of the information that we found, and if they would support these actions being taken at the site. So, like I said, we submitted this technical report to the EPA in November of last year, and we got a surprise. But that surprise did not come when I submitted that report to the remedial project manager. It came in December when our team was having a conversation with another EPA employee. So we found out that in October of last year, a month before we submitted our report, the EPA actually published a 5-year review addendum. We were totally blindsided by this. And, you know, first and foremost, this tells us, point A, we have a communication problem. We submitted the report in November. We got a response from the remedial project manager, but she did not bother to tell us that they had published an addendum on the 5-year review a month prior. None of the elected officials we met with and none of the government agencies that we met with had any idea about this addendum. That's upsetting. You know, the local community members, nonprofits like THEA, the elected officials over the area, and even the government agencies had no idea. None of us were notified. So I'm not really sure what good a report is if it just sits on the shelf and nobody finds out about it, other than checking a box. And we need more from the EPA than checking a box. So I'm wondering if you heard about this, because none of the community members that I've talked to have actually heard about this addendum from the agency or from anyone. And so if you're online, please let us know if you have heard about this. Thanks, Marlene. Wow. All right. Sorry, I was engaging a little bit with the online audience there. Kind of catching up on the messages. Okay, so let's go to point B. I keep saying a 5-year review addendum, but what is that? Okay, so a 5-year review addendum is completed when the protectiveness is deferred in a 5-year review report. So back in 2017, when the last 5-year review was completed, it acknowledged that what was being done and what had been done to date was not protective of human health. So it deferred the protectiveness. It basically just pushed it off. So an addendum is done when that takes place. And as I mentioned, the 2017 review could not conclude protectiveness. So here we are now in 2022, and we are still not to a point where this site is considered protective of human health or the environment. What did this addendum tell us? A couple of main points I want to go over from the addendum. So what you're seeing here on the presentation or here where we are at the school, here on the wall, is that this table right here, as well as the next screen, they are directly from the addendum. And so this one is the remedy performance. How well is the cleanup of the site actually performing? So it says that the problem is that the sampling that had been done recently from the monitoring wells and private groundwater wells in the community west of the Superfund site was found to have levels of PERC above the legal limits, above the maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs. Many ways to say what I'm trying to say. So they found wells, multiple wells, that were above what is known to be safe for human health. And no action has been taken. And so they make a recommendation here that the agency should perform a groundwater well survey and use that to update the properties that are in the area of impact. So this Superfund site has been on the national priorities list for cleanup for a little over a decade now. And we still don't have it to a point where we can say confidently that people are not being exposed, and that's the problem. So we need to get to that point, and we need your help for that. So there's a milestone date here of 3/30/2020, and I was a little confused by this milestone date. You know, why are we getting a report here in October of 2021, and we've got this milestone date? And so the milestone date is when the EPA hoped to have achieved protectiveness from that 2017 5-year review. However, again, we're still not there. The other main point is institutional controls are not in place for the properties that have underlying groundwater contamination. So one of the things that the EPA had said in their 2017 review of this site was that property owners above the plume should be notified periodically. Their initial letter sent to them notifying them that, you know, their property is above this groundwater contamination, and then reminders throughout time. The EPA acknowledges in the reports that we reviewed that they have not implemented any of those institutional controls. Again, kind of like the report statement I made earlier, you know, what good is a report if it sits on a shelf? What good is the content if you're not taking any action? you know, we keep seeing these things being said by the agency saying we need to do this to protect public health. We need to do that. But then there's not any action, and we really need to see that. So this map here is from the addendum, and it shows some groundwater wells. I do believe I showed this in the recent town hall. If you joined us in our most recent town hall meeting, then this map should look familiar. This is showing the wells that were sampled in the neighborhood west of the Superfund site. And so that big red outline is one of the drilling restrictions. So that's where water infrastructure is already in place and no new wells are supposed to be drilled. So the infrastructure is there, you know, at least to the curb anyways, for this whole area within this red zone to be provided a safe, protected drinking water source. But about 2/3 of the homing area are not connected to it. So what you're seeing here is the data points or the numbers here that are in red were found above that level that is known to be safe for human health. Okay, the last thing, this is completely the EPA's own language here, not my original thoughts or statement, but this is the protectiveness statement that ends this 5-year review addendum. And I just think that this is really telling and really important for you guys to be aware of. I just find it so unacceptable. So it says, the remedy at the site is not protective because exposure to contaminants in groundwater and the residential areas exist through the use of private water wells. The following actions need to be taken to ensure protectiveness. Delineate and evaluate extent of groundwater plume. Where's the plume? Implement appropriate actions to prevent human exposure to contaminated groundwater and any potential vapor intrusion, and develop and implement institutional controls. Okay, so we've really got to roll our sleeves up here. There's a lot of work to be done. It's about time, you know, that the work is done and that this site is protected. And we keep talking about this term, institutional controls. So if you're not familiar with it, we're going to get there. All right, so I wanted to show you this map. If you've joined us before, you have seen it many, many times. This is a map showing within that water line area where there is infrastructure to provide safe drinking water to residents and take them off of the wells. The parcels here are in blue are on the public water source. The parcels in orange communicated with the EPA, but they declined going on the public water source. The parcels that are like the treetop color, those people did not communicate with the EPA. So it can be reasonably assumed that they are on groundwater wells. Now there's a lot of reasons why people, or there's numerous reasons, you know, that we could think of or that we've heard from community members why they don't want to get off the water well. First of all, you really don't know these contaminants are there. They're invisible. They don't smell. They don't taste. Not much anyways. And so you probably might think your water's fine. And so you think, okay, why would I want a water bill? Why would I want to stop using my well that I've used for all these years and go on this other source that maybe someone doesn't want chlorinated water? You know, there's all kinds of different things that we hear why people don't want to go off of their well. But the biggest thing at the end of the day is that the potential for exposure is absolutely there. The agency is finding this stuff in the area. And the safest thing for people is to be on the public source that is filtered, monitored, and not from within this place. So this is what we need from the agency. I mean, it should just say in red, like action. This should say we need action because that is first and foremost what we need. But we need them to define the plume. It's not well understood right now, today, where all this contamination is. We know for a fact it has made its way as far south as that shopping center at Jones Road in 1960. So there's a monitoring well there that did pick up some of these types of contaminants. So has it gone further south? Has it gone further east? We don't know because adequate testing hasn't taken place. The outer boundaries, the outer perimeter of this plume has not been defined. We need that to take place. Then we can have a constructive conversation about providing people safe drinking water. Know where the plume is. We can better understand what communities, what apartment complexes, what daycares, what businesses, what homes need to be protected. Then we need the agency to protect the vapor systems from the elements. All right, so we just had a little bit of a freeze scare, and I know folks are saying like, okay, is the Jones Road site going to be okay? Because in Uri, it was not okay. It actually went off system for several weeks because some of the pipes froze. So we need the vapor systems that are actually at the Superfund site's ground zero to be protected from the elements, from flooding, and from freezing, particularly those two. Then we need the agency to implement the institutional controls. So the institutional controls are those non-engineered controls that are administrative or legal. And so one of the institutional controls that the agency has recognized that they need to implement, first and foremost, is notifying the local residents that this site even exists and that their property is above this plume of contamination. Also, we need the agency to clearly post public notices at the Superfund site. This is the only Superfund site that I've ever been to that you have no idea it's a Superfund site. You have no clue. There are not signs anywhere. The Superfund site that I grew up by, the San Jacinto River Waste Pits, has massive signs like 2 times my height, like over 10 feet tall. These are massive Superfund sites, federal signs that are posted at every access point to that property, and the property is restricted. But this site, businesses operate on top of it, and there's no signage. Some of the elected officials that we met with to discuss our 5-year review opinion, they were not okay with this, and we definitely need action here. So what's next? Well, we have to continue organizing the local community because we need the local community members and the local elected officials to put pressure on the EPA. People power is our greatest power. So we're going to be hosting a petition on our website, and we're also working on scheduling some Canvas events in the community. I tell my team I want to be like the Girl Scouts in the community, right? Like everybody looks forward to their cookies. I want everybody to know when they see our booth out front, Kroger or whatever store in the community, that they already know. We need to get to that point where residents already know what exactly is going on at that site, and that site even exists, and that we need the community's help. So for those of you who are with us, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, your friends, your coworkers. Just talking to a couple of people about this could greatly increase the awareness. We will continue meeting with elected officials, and then we are expecting the EPA to release their final 5-year review, or the final version of their 2022 5-year review by September 29th. So we are anticipating it this fall. It'd be lovely if it came out earlier. Hopefully they would let us know. Would it be like the addendum where they just published it and didn't tell anybody? But we'll keep checking. And if you are savvy online, please keep checking also. Maybe we might miss it. So let us know if it is actually floating up out there in a month or 2 or so, and you find it. Please let us know, because the communication hasn't always been there. And we definitely will be having conversations with the EPA above our local region about the need for better communication, first and foremost, about this site. All right, so now we are going to talk about a sampling effort that we have been working on, and our assistant director, Rachel Jordan, is actually going to be the one talking to y'all about this tonight. Rachel? You want to make things?
All right, so we have the opportunity, and we're excited about being able to partner with some local research and medical universities. And while we are still waiting for their final internal approval for this whole project, it's right there. We're just about to get it. So by the end of March, which is the end of the first quarter, we should have that approval, and then the universities are going to host an informational session with all of the volunteers and give us the details on how the sampling project is going to take place and what's going to be expected of the people who volunteer their properties. Between April and June, which is going to be the second quarter of the year, that's when the actual sampling is going to take place. They're looking for 55 properties, 55 sites to look at, to go in and test not only the air, but also the groundwater. And then between July and September in the third quarter, the universities are going to be reviewing and analyzing all of that data that they got from these sampling sites and putting it all together in a way that by the end of the year, they can host a community meeting in which they're going to go over all of those results, what it means for the community members, what it means for the site in general. And we're also going to make sure that those 55 volunteers who volunteer their properties are going to get their personal results as well. So if you are interested in volunteering to participate, if you want to see what's in your soil, what's in the air, I'm not your soil, what's in the water and what's in the air at your home, let us know. You can email me at ad@thexhea.org. Participants will receive a stipend for their time, and like I said, you'll get your own personal results from your property so that you can do whatever you will with that stuff. Okay, that's the check.
All right. Okay. Right, so now I would like to know what questions you have for us. Rachel, if you want to hop over here and help me on the chat so that I make sure we are not missing anybody online. It looks like it's been an active chat. Does anybody here in person have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, Pamela.
Are you going to be comparing your results to the EPA's results of testing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, we're very familiar with the results to date of the sampling that the EPA has done. So, and we will be mapping the results that we get. And perhaps we could do some sort of overlay map. But at the end of the day, we want to combine as much data as we can to create that plume of that boundary of the plume. Good question. All right. Anybody online?
Mm-hmm. Are you going outside the pool?
We are. Yeah. So we're outside where in 2010, I think it was, the last plume boundary map, I think, was from 2010, if I'm remembering correct off the top of my head. We will be going outside of that boundary, but we will also be going outside of that drilling restricted area, because these restrictions were put in place over a decade ago. And we know for a fact, the EPA has told us that the direction of the flow of the groundwater plume has changed. And so we're going to be going just outside. Now, we ourselves will not be taking the samples or analyzing the samples. The toxicologists and researchers with these universities that we're partnered with, they're going to actually be doing it. You know, I have a a college education in science, but my expertise, my day-to-day job, something I do regularly, is not in the labs, is not sampling. I'm not the expert on those actions. And so the toxicologists and the scientists who actually are the experts with the instrumentation and the analysis, they are the ones that will be doing the sampling and the analysis and reporting of the results. And so how that's going to work, segue real quick. If you're online, you should be able to unmute yourself if you would like to engage conversationally instead of in the chat. So if you're online, please feel free to engage by unmuting yourself or dropping something in the chat. The way that the sampling is going to be done is at the actual well. So it won't be done unless there's, some sort of circumstance, but it will be done in real time at the well. The type of equipment that we were able to secure with the universities is really exciting high-tech equipment that allows you to take the samples in the field in real time. So we will go to the person's well and run the well to catch groundwater samples and analyze them in this instrument, piece of lab equipment right there. Then also they will be able to take part of this equipment and monitor the air at the well, because the contaminants are in the water, right? But they have the ability to vaporize or to go into the air from the water. They react with the air. And so that will let us know what's in the water and what's reacting, what's going into the air as that water is flowing up and out of the well. So 2 samples will be taken at each volunteered property. And I'm really excited about that because these types of chemicals aren't always consistent. They don't come up, it's not like a layered cake. They don't come up in these like nice defined layers of cake, although I have made cake that I've stacked in layers and it was too hot and it was a mess. And so not my layered cake, but it's not like layered cake, right? Where it's not coming up in these nice, clear, defined ways. It is seasonal. It can vaporize more into the air in hotter times when the weather is warmer. So there's variables that can influence how these chemicals react. So being able to catch samples at different times is going to make this a stronger study. All right.
The thing that Marlene said was only to us, so if you wanted to say that.
Okay. Lovely. Oh, hey, Grace. Thanks for joining us. All right. Alita, thanks for joining us also. Okay, so just repeating something in the chat was that, a local resident did report that they have heard from the EPA 3 times in the past to announce their meetings. So I'm going to guess, Marlene, that was probably pre-pandemic. So we did touch base with the EPA who we were communicating about a different Superfund site, but it's about EPA policies across the board and asking when they can actually get back to having in-person meetings. They are still not allowed to have in-person meetings, but at a minimum, when this 5-year review is published, we're asking the agency to provide mail updates to the people in their mailing list around the Jones Road Superfund site. All right. Okay, so does anybody online? All right. Oh, great. Okay, great. So there was actually redistricting recently and some things that have affected the Superfund site politically. And so Marlene was letting us know here that Representative Penny Morales Shaw is now the rep for the area south of FM 1960 and Jones Road. So there's a shopping center there that has Hobby Lobby, a couple of cell phone stores. There's a fitness center there. There's several places to eat, fast food and restaurants. And we know that, you know, those facilities, some of those places are in fact sitting on top of the plume. And we did find a letter when we put in a Freedom of Information Act request to the EPA. We got thousands of pages of documents, and going through that, one of the documents was in fact a copy of the letter that the EPA sent to at least one of the businesses in that shopping center there at 1960 and Jones Road. So north of 1960, east of Jones Road. The EPA had sent a letter saying that they did find unacceptably high levels of vinyl chloride in the groundwater beneath that property. So I do know that at least one of the property owners, of the business owners there in that area, was notified by the agency. But, you know, I mean, to be honest, what we find oftentimes is that the letters are, again, just checking a box, maybe a little vague, maybe not giving as enough emphasis to the issue as they should, but merely, you know, checking a box, saying, you know, okay, if the response to finding this elevated, this above the legal limit level is to send a letter, here, we sent a letter, right? And so it's really important for businesses, just like our community members, they're part of the community. It's really important for them to understand, like, what does this actually mean? What does it actually mean to have a business or, you know, a home, whatever, on top of a groundwater plume that has vinyl chloride in it? And I'm saying vinyl chloride because that's the chemical specifically that was found near that intersection. So thank you for that, Marlene. We will definitely be reaching out to Representative Shaw. We, one of our community organizers right now is going through and updating for all of our communities, the rezoning or the redistricting and some of the changes. So thank you for that. All right, anything else? All right, lovely. So we started a little late, but we're getting out of here early. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being engaged. Again, if you are interested in volunteering and having your groundwater well sampled with THEA and our university partners as part of our research effort, please contact us. You can contact Rachel, who you heard from earlier, at ad@txhea.org. And I look forward to hopefully seeing y'all in person next time. I don't know, but please feel free to stay virtual. We'll continue this hybrid format because I know it's just kind of uncertain times, and some of us are more vulnerable and definitely need to stay virtual or maybe under the weather. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. And I look forward to updating you guys in the future. Have a good night.